Look, man, welcome to the National Football League. Welcome to the big leagues. You're a guy, you don't like to talk, you don't like the spotlight. I know that about you. Jordan Palmer told me that about you. He spent so much time with you. But here's the deal, man. You don't owe the media nothing. You are who you are. So if you come out and say these things, then double down on it. Don't start your career off this way thinking that you owe an explanation to the media. Just go out and ball. Here's the problem right here, right? So back in the day, we start talking about how unhealthy our athletes are when they leave the game. Why? Because we talk about what? Their identity is wrapped up in the game. And now you're starting to hear athletes say, well, basketball and football, that's my platform, but it's not my purpose. It's not who I am. And that's this guy. Now he's being told that in high school, in college, their coaches, the support staff are telling these athletes, guys, you got to figure out who you are outside the game because you don't want to walk away from the game unhealthy. You don't want the game to be taken away from you and you don't know what's next or what to do next. So that's all this guy's been told the last couple of years, and he's struggling right now trying to communicate and articulate himself in the media. But Trevor Lawrence, like, you know who you are, bro. Don't think that you have to answer to the media every single week, every time you sit in front of the podium, because now that you're in the NFL, every Wednesday, every Thursday, you're going to have a weekly recurring meeting with the media, and you don't want to do this. You just go out there and ball. Greg, you know what this is about, man.
I do, Brandon. I do. And as a 37-year-old Greg who is now retired, speaking to a back when I was drafted, 21, 22-year-old Greg, I would have responded too. Because I don't want someone else controlling my narrative. And also, when you got to think, I don't mind what he said. I actually love what he said, and I love his position. I love his belief and his confidence in who he is. And I get what you're saying for him to just be who he is. Well, this is who he is as well. He, as a person, when you feel like you have been misinterpreted and you haven't really controlled your own narrative as far as what you've been able to communicate and what everybody's been able to digest of your communication, then you should say something if you feel strongly about it. And that's what he did. He is secure in who he is, but he's also secure enough to make adjustments and to tell people that, whoa, wait a minute, that's not quite what I was saying. And it's not that he's coming back and playing this back and forth with the media. It's just he's young. He is mature, but there's a level of immaturity that he is going to have to develop the maturity, and that's the media. And the NFL media as a quarterback is going to be all over him, and they're going to depict and pry and analyze every single thing that he does until they find a flaw. That is what happens. And so I love what he said. It was strong-willed. He feels that way about what he said and how he responded. I don't mind it.
So there's two directions to take this conversation. One is this new generation of athletes. And this is not judgmental. This is not an old man yelling at a cloud, but it's just acknowledging that, saying things, and I want to read part of the quote exactly, I don't need football to make me feel worthy as a person, while a very healthy thing to hear and to say, and what you would want to hear if Trevor Lawrence was your friend or family, very, very different than what you would hear from almost any athlete of any generation that came before him. And he is not the only Gen Z athlete that we're going to hear more of this from. That's one direction to take it. The other direction to take it is the direction Wildes took it last week, and he has been proven 1,000% correct, which is Wildes. Trevor Lawrence, for the first time in his career, stepped in it a bit, whether it's fair or not, that's how it's being perceived, and he felt like he had to respond. And the most interesting part of that to me, Wildes, is this. He knew and knows this absolutely was not affecting his draft position. He's not Jamar Chase, who some mocks have going 4th and some mocks have going 14th. And he's like, oh, I got to clean this up. His next tweet after this series was thanking Jags fans for donating money to a charity or something because he's already a Jaguar. He knows he's already a Jaguar. So the fact that this doesn't actually affect where he's going in the draft and he still felt the need to respond, I find that a little interesting and a bit of a window into how he may or may not deal with what is going to be, as Greg mentioned, being picked apart on a daily basis once he is the number 1 pick of the draft.
See, I don't think he was being picked apart. This wasn't a post-game press conference where he said something that was misinterpreted. Him and his team made a strategic public relations mistake. That's what it is, Brandon. He decided to do the Sports Illustrated column or article. He's on the cover of Sports Illustrated, and his pose is him in a high chair, not a high chair like a kid, just a chair, and he's leaning back and he's got a football. And the quote and the little caption is, "What is the best quarterback prospect in years out to prove absolutely nothing?" This was a decision. You did the photo shoot leaning back. There's a million ways that you can craft your image when you're coming out of college and going to the pros. You could have your eye black on and because now he's backtracking from it. Like if you're right that he should have, I agree with you that he should have just stuck with it. Like, I agree with this. But if you made the decision to do the Sports Illustrated, cover in jeans, laying back and relaxing with your hair flowing, then stick with it. Then make that like, here's our image that we're presenting. It's not the biggest deal in the world, but I think it's a strategic mistake that he's now backtracking from.
Yeah, but the proper maturation of an athlete is this. Greg, you just said it. Look, at his age, I would have said the same thing. The 37-year-old Greg Jennings, I wouldn't have responded to it. I would have just doubled down on what I said from the beginning. Think about LeBron James. What's LeBron James' narrative? What's his narrative been, or what has he been driving for years now? I'm more than an athlete. When somebody told him to shut up and dribble. So when you think about athletes coming into the locker room young, what end up happening, you come in, you realize like, oh, wow, my identity isn't all in football. I'm more than an athlete. You saw KD come out and say that, what was it, last week, 2 weeks ago, where he said, it's not all about championships for me anymore. It's just a level of maturity where you know that there's more to life. As an athlete, Nick, you said it last week. That's what we do. We put our athletes in a box and we say, look, all you do is dribble. All you do is this. And we want to see our athletes go to and from the gym, to and from the facility and games, and that's it. When we see them outside the box, it's deviant. It doesn't feel right. It's a little awkward. I remember the Chicago Bears telling me, well, Brandon, if you're going to do Showtime, we're going to let you go. I said, what do you mean it's my off day? Well, no, we want our football players to just focus on football. Well, even on my off day or bye week, yes, absolutely. That's what Pace told me. I wouldn't be sitting here today on First Things First if I'd have followed that narrative, if I'd have followed Ryan Pace in Chicago. I said, well, you might as well trade me now. That's how I got to the Jets, because they try to put our athletes in boxes. But guess what happened when I got to the Jets, Greg? I had my best year ever, and I was still doing Showtime every Tuesday. On my off day, I was doing more media. I had a radio show, and I went to the Pro Bowl. I was all pro. So this whole thing that athletes can't do more is ridiculous.
Oh, you're exactly right. He can definitely do more. For me, when I watch a young man like this and he say what he truly feels and believe, and Wiles, you talked about the article and the cover of the Sports Illustrated. That's how he feels. That's his belief. And yes, Brandon, you're right. Maybe he should have doubled down. But when you are a young athlete and you feel heat in one direction more than the other, and that direction was all talking about him not really being bought in football, and is he really invested? Right. And he doesn't have a chip like Tom and Aaron and all these other guys. His situation is completely different than any of these guys that we even try to compare him to. Right. He's always been out front. He's always been in the forefront and successful at that matter. And so for me, it is a mistake because he does lean into what we all lean into. But it's a mistake that, like you just alluded to, Brandon, It's a maturation curve. So even though it's a mistake, it's a much needed, because I guarantee you this won't be the trend that we see with Trevor Lawrence, him trying to reverse and back up. And I don't think he's backing up. I think he's truly still expressing his sentiments of, look, I'm not going to just say what you guys want me to say. I am more than an athlete. Football does not define who I am. It will never define who I am. It's just a part of who I am. And yes, I can still love it and work my butt off to be the best I possibly can be, even though I don't feel the same way as some other guys.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.